What would you do if you came home early to surprise your husband and discovered he was the one full of surprises? Rebecca Sterling thought she was living the perfect life, married to a tech millionaire, 7 months pregnant, living in a $2 million home. But when a canceled doctor's appointment brought her home unexpectedly, she walked into her bedroom to find her husband tangled in silk sheets with her best friend since college. But here's the twist that will shock you. The affair was just the beginning. What Rebecca discovered next would expose a web of lies so intricate, so calculated, that it involved offshore accounts, federal crimes, and a pattern of destruction spanning over a decade. Her cheating husband wasn't just unfaithful. He was a predator who had done this before. And Rebecca was about to become the key to bringing down an entire criminal enterprise. This is the true story of how a pregnant woman's worst day became the moment that saved countless other women from the same fate. Stick around, because what happens next will restore your faith in justice and show you just how dangerous it can be to underestimate a woman with lawyer brothers. If you're ready for a story of betrayal, revenge, and ultimate justice, hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe, because stories like this remind us that sometimes the good guys really do win. The bedroom door handle turned slowly as Rebecca heard familiar laughter from inside. Her heart stopped. That laugh belonged to Vanessa Mitchell, her best friend since college. But Vanessa wasn't supposed to be here. She was supposed to be in Chicago for a design conference. Rebecca Sterling stood frozen in the hallway of her $1 million home, 7 months pregnant and holding the ultrasound photos she'd been so excited to share. The appointment had been canceled due to equipment malfunction, so she'd come home early to surprise her husband Jonathan with lunch. The surprise, when it seemed, was on her. "Jonathan," Vanessa's voice drifted through the partially open door. "She'll be gone for hours. Stop worrying." Rebecca's hands trembled as she pushed the door open wider. The scene before her shattered her world in an instant. Jonathan Sterling, her husband of 5 years, lay tangled in their Egyptian cotton sheets with her best friend. Vanessa was wearing Rebecca's silk robe, the one Jonathan had given her for their anniversary. "Rebecca," Jonathan bolted upright, his face draining of color. "You're supposed to be at the doctor." "Canceled appointment," Rebecca said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. The ultrasound photos fluttered to the floor like broken dreams. Vanessa had the decency to look ashamed, clutching the robe tighter around herself. "Rebecca, I can explain." "Can you?" Rebecca's voice found strength. "Can you explain why you're wearing my robe in my bed with my husband while I'm 7 months pregnant?" Jonathan scrambled for his boxers. "It just happened. Becca, it doesn't mean anything." "Just happened?" Rebecca's laugh came out bitter and broken. "Just happened like gravity, like an accident." "Don't be dramatic," Jonathan said, his tone shifting to the condescending one she'd grown to hate. "You're overreacting." Rebecca stared at him, even caught red-handed. He was gaslighting her, making her feel crazy for being upset about finding him in bed with another woman. "How long?" she asked. Vanessa and Jonathan exchanged a look that told Rebecca everything. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was a relationship. "How long?" Rebecca repeated, her voice rising. 6 months, Vanessa whispered. 6 months. Rebecca felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. 6 months of lies. 6 months of pretending to be her friend while sleeping with her husband. 6 months of Jonathan coming home late, claiming work emergencies while he was really with Vanessa. "Get out," Rebecca said quietly. "Rebecca, let's talk about this." Jonathan started. "Get out," Rebecca screamed, surprising herself with the force of her voice. "Both of you, get out of my house right now." Vanessa gathered her clothes quickly, avoiding eye contact. "Rebecca, please. I never meant for this to happen." "But it did happen," Rebecca said. "Every day for 6 months. It happened. Every time you called me your best friend. It happened. Every time you came to dinner. Every time you helped to plan the baby shower. It happened." Jonathan was dressing now, his businessman facade returning. "We need to discuss this rationally when you've calmed down." "Rationally?" Rebecca felt hysteria creeping in. "There's nothing rational about this. You've been having an affair while I've been growing your child." "Don't use the baby as a weapon," Jonathan snapped. Rebecca's hand instinctively went to her belly, protecting her unborn daughter from the toxicity filling the room. "I'm not using anything as a weapon. I'm stating facts." "We'll talk later." Jonathan said, grabbing his keys. No, Rebecca said firmly. We'll talk through lawyers. Jonathan's face hardened. Don't make threats you can't back up. You have no money, no career, no options. You need me. The cruelty in his voice cut deeper than discovering the affair. This was the man she'd loved, trusted, planned a future with. This was the father of her unborn child, and he was threatening her in her most vulnerable moment. After they left, Rebecca stood alone in her bedroom, staring at the rumpled sheets. The room smelled like Vanessa's perfume, a scent that used to comfort her, but now made her nauseous. She walked to her jewelry box with shaking hands and opened it. There, nestled among her grandmother's pearls, were a pair of diamond earrings. The ones Jonathan had supposedly bought for her birthday last month. The ones Vanessa had been wearing to dinner just 2 weeks ago, claiming they were a gift from a grateful client. Rebecca sank onto the bed and finally let herself cry. Great, heaving sobs that shook her pregnant body. She cried for her marriage, for her friendship, for the innocence she'd lost in a single moment. She cried for her daughter, who would be born into this mess. When the tears finally stopped, Rebecca realized she was stronger than Jonathan thought. Yes, she'd given up her marketing career to be a full-time wife. Yes, she depended on his income. But she wasn't helpless. She had something Jonathan had forgotten about, something that would prove to be his downfall. She had family. Rebecca picked up her phone and dialed her mother's number with steady hands. Mom, she said when Grace Thompson answered. I need to come home, and I need you to call Marcus and Daniel. Tell them it's an emergency. Sweetheart, what's wrong? I'll explain when I get there. Just tell my brothers their little sister needs them, and Mom tell them to bring their law degrees. Rebecca gathered the ultrasound photos from the floor, grabbed an overnight bag, and walked out of the house that no longer felt like home. She didn't look back. As she drove toward her childhood neighborhood, Rebecca felt something she hadn't expected. Relief. The marriage had been over for months, she just hadn't known it. Now she did, and now she could do something about it. Jonathan Sterling had made one crucial mistake. He'd underestimated Rebecca Thompson Sterling. He'd forgotten that she came from a family of fighters. He'd forgotten that her brothers weren't just any lawyers. Marcus Thompson was the best criminal defense attorney in the state. Daniel Thompson specialized in high-stakes divorce cases. Together, they were about to become Jonathan's worst nightmare. Rebecca pulled into her mother's driveway and sat for a moment, gathering her strength. Her daughter kicked inside her belly, as if sensing the change coming. Rebecca placed her hand over the movement and made a promise. It's going to be okay. Baby girl, Mommy's going to make sure you're protected. And Daddy's going to learn that there are consequences for his choices. The porch light flicked on, and Rebecca saw her mother's silhouette in the doorway. Home, safety, family. The war was about to begin. Grace Thompson took one look at her pregnant daughter's tear-stained face and pulled her into a fierce hug. What did he do? Grace asked, her voice tight with controlled fury. Rebecca collapsed into her mother's arms, feeling safe for the first time in months. He's been cheating on me, with Vanessa, for 6 months. That bastard, Grace muttered, then immediately apologized. Sorry, sweetheart. But really, and what kind of man does that to his pregnant wife? The kind who thinks he can get away with anything because he has money, Rebecca said, settling onto the familiar couch of her childhood home. Grace bustled around making tea, the way she always did in a crisis. I called your brothers. Marcus is driving up from the city, and Daniel's finishing up in court. They'll both be here within the hour. Rebecca nodded, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. Growing up as the only girl with 2 protective older brothers had sometimes felt suffocating. Today, it felt like salvation. Tell me everything, Grace said, settling beside her daughter. Rebecca recounted the morning's events, from the canceled appointment to finding them in her bed. With each detail, Grace's expression grew more grim. 6 months, Grace repeated. While you've been pregnant, the worst part is, I think I knew something was wrong. Jonathan's been distant, working late, taking mysterious phone calls. I just thought it was stress about becoming a father. You trusted him, Grace said simply. That's not your fault. The front door burst open, and Marcus Thompson strode in, still wearing his courtroom suit. At 35, Marcus had inherited their father's height and their mother's fierce determination. His reputation as a criminal defense attorney was built on his ability to see patterns others missed. "Where is he?" Marcus demanded. "Where's the son of a bitch? Language," Grace chided automatically. "Sorry, Mom." Marcus knelt beside Rebecca's chair. "Becky, are you okay? Is the baby okay?" "We're fine," Rebecca said, though she wasn't sure if that was true. Physically, anyway. Daniel arrived 20 minutes later, briefcase in hand and legal mind already working. The younger Thompson brother specialized in complex divorce cases, particularly those involving significant assets and business interests. "Okay," Daniel said, settling into lawyer mode. "Before we get emotional, we need to think strategically. Tell me about Jonathan's finances." Rebecca blinked. "His finances, how much is he worth? What kind of assets are we talking about? Business interests? Real estate? Investments?" "I don't know exactly," Rebecca admitted. "He handles all that. I know we have the house, which he said is worth about $2 million, his tech company, Sterling Innovations, some investment properties." Marcus and Daniel exchanged a look that made Rebecca nervous. "Rebecca," Marcus said carefully, "in my experience, when wealthy men start having affairs, they often start moving money around, protecting assets." "What do you mean?" Daniel opened his briefcase and pulled out a legal pad. "Has Jonathan been secretive about finances lately? New accounts, business trips, unexplained transfers?" Rebecca thought back over the past months. "He did mention something about offshore accounts for tax purposes, and he's been traveling more for business." "What kind of business trips?" Marcus asked. "I don't know. He said it was boring financial stuff, meetings with investors, that sort of thing." The brothers exchanged another look. "Rebecca," Daniel said gently, "I need you to think very carefully. Has Jonathan ever asked you to sign any documents, papers he said were routine, maybe related to taxes or the business?" A cold chill ran down Rebecca's spine. "Last month, he had me sign some papers he said were tax documents. I didn't read them carefully because I trusted him." "Shit," Marcus muttered. "Marcus," Grace warned. "Sorry, but Rebecca, those probably weren't tax documents. They were likely either asset transfers or pre-divorce positioning." Rebecca felt sick. "You're saying he's been planning this?" "I'm saying it's possible," Daniel said. "The timing is suspicious. Most men don't start affairs and simultaneously restructure their finances unless they're planning an exit strategy." "But I'm pregnant," Rebecca said weakly, which, unfortunately, might have accelerated his timeline. Marcus said, "Some men panic at the thought of child support and alimony. They start moving assets to minimize what they'll have to pay." Rebecca struggled to process this information. The betrayal ran deeper than just the affair. Jonathan had been systematically planning to leave her with nothing. "What do we do?" she asked. Daniel was already taking notes. "First, we document everything. Every asset you know about, every document you've signed, every conversation about money. Second, we file for immediate temporary restraining orders on all accounts and assets." "Can we do that? Given that you're 7 months pregnant and just discovered the affair?" "Absolutely. No judge is going to let him drain accounts while you're carrying his child." Marcus leaned forward. "Rebecca, I need you to think about something else. Has Jonathan done anything that might be illegal? Not just the affair, but business-wise." "I don't know." "Why? Because if he's been hiding assets from you, he might also be hiding them from the IRS. Tax evasion, wire fraud. There are a lot of federal crimes involved in moving money offshore." "You're scaring me," Rebecca said. "Good," Marcus replied. "You should be scared, but you should also be angry. This man has been systematically planning to destroy your life while you've been carrying his child." Grace, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke up. "What about Vanessa? Can she get in trouble too?" Daniel nodded. "If she knew about the financial manipulation and participated in any way, absolutely. Conspiracy charges, accessory to fraud, and if she's been living off money that rightfully belongs to Rebecca." "She hasn't been," Rebecca said quickly. "I mean, I don't think so. She has her own interior design business." "We'll look into that too," Marcus said. 6 months is a long time. People in affairs often start making stupid financial decisions." Rebecca felt overwhelmed. This morning she'd thought her biggest problem was her husband's infidelity. Now she was learning about potential federal crimes, hidden assets, and conspiracy charges. I can't handle all this, she said, her hand going to her belly. You don't have to handle it, Daniel said firmly. That's what we're here for. Marcus and I are going to take care of the legal side. You focus on taking care of yourself and the baby. But you need to understand that you're not alone, Marcus interrupted. Jonathan Sterling picked the wrong woman to mess with. He forgot that you're a Thompson. Grace squeezed her daughter's hand. Your brothers are right, sweetheart. This family protects its own. Rebecca looked around at her family, her mother's determined face. Marcus's righteous anger. Daniel's calculated planning. For the first time since discovering the affair, she felt something other than despair. She felt hope. What's our first move? She asked. Daniel smiled grimly. We're going to freeze every asset Jonathan has access to. Then we're going to start digging into his business dealings. And if we find what I think we're going to find, he's going to wish he'd never met our sister, Marcus finished. Rebecca nodded, feeling strength returning to her voice. Good, because I'm done being the victim in this story. That's my girl, Grace said proudly. The Thompson family was going to war, and Jonathan Sterling had no idea what was coming for him. The next morning, Rebecca returned to her house flanked by both her brothers. She'd spent the night in her childhood bedroom, sleeping better than she had in months despite everything that had happened. There was something powerful about being surrounded by family, about knowing she wasn't fighting this battle alone. Daniel carried a briefcase full of legal documents, while Marcus had his phone ready to record any conversations. They'd spent hours the night before preparing for this confrontation, mapping out strategy like generals planning a campaign. Remember, Daniel said as they approached the front door, we're here in a legal capacity. We're establishing boundaries and gathering information. Stay calm, stay professional. And if he tries to intimidate Rebecca or threaten her in any way, Marcus added, I'll make sure he understands that would be a very bad idea. Rebecca used her key to enter the house she'd shared with Jonathan for 3 years. It felt different now, like a crime scene rather than a home. She could still smell traces of Vanessa's perfume in the air. Jonathan was in the kitchen, fully dressed in one of his expensive suits, talking rapidly on his phone. When he saw Rebecca and her brothers, his expression shifted from surprise to wariness to barely contained anger. I'll call you back, he said into the phone, ending the call abruptly. Jonathan, Rebecca said evenly, these are my brothers, Marcus and Daniel Thompson. I believe you've met them at family gatherings. Of course, Jonathan's smile was tight and false. Though I wasn't expecting a family reunion this morning. We're here in our professional capacity, Daniel said, setting his briefcase on the kitchen island. I'm representing Rebecca in all matters relating to your marriage dissolution. Marriage dissolution? Jonathan laughed harshly. Don't you think you're being a bit dramatic? So I made a mistake. We can work through this. A mistake that lasted 6 months, Marcus asked, his voice deceptively calm. That's not a mistake, Mr. Sterling. That's a pattern of deception. Jonathan's mask slipped slightly. I don't think I need to discuss my personal life with strangers. We're not strangers, Rebecca said quietly. We're family, and you've made this their business by destroying our marriage while I'm carrying your child. Our marriage isn't destroyed, Jonathan said, but his tone lacked conviction. People work through infidelity all the time. With counseling, were you planning to tell Vanessa about counseling? Marcus interrupted. Or were you going to continue the affair during marriage therapy? Jonathan's jaw tightened. I don't have to answer that. Actually, you do, Daniel said, pulling documents from his briefcase. These are temporary restraining orders on all marital assets, filed this morning and approved by Judge Harrison, effective immediately. You cannot move, transfer, or liquidate any assets without court approval. The color drained from Jonathan's face. You can't do that. We just did, Daniel replied calmly. Rebecca is 7 months pregnant and has just discovered a 6-month affair. The court takes a very dim view of wealthy spouses who might attempt to hide assets during emotionally vulnerable periods. I'm not hiding anything, Jonathan snapped. Really? Marcus pulled out his own phone. Because my preliminary investigation shows some interesting offshore transfers over the past 6 months, coincidentally, the same time period as your affair. Jonathan's eyes narrowed. You've been investigating me. We've been protecting our sister. Marcus said simply. Something you clearly haven't been doing. The front door opened, and Patricia Sterling swept in without knocking. Jonathan's mother was an elegant woman in her 60s who had never quite accepted Rebecca as good enough for her son. "Jonathan, darling, I came as soon as I could," Patricia said, then noticed the brothers. "Oh, I didn't realize we had visitors." "Mrs. Sterling," Daniel said politely. "I'm Daniel Thompson, Rebecca's brother and attorney. This is my brother Marcus." Patricia's eyes narrowed. "Attorneys, really? Jonathan, don't you think this is all rather unnecessary?" "Unnecessary!" Rebecca finally found her voice. "Your son has been cheating on me for 6 months while I've been pregnant with his child, and you think involving attorneys is unnecessary?" "These things happen in marriages," Patricia said dismissively. "The important thing is to work through them quietly, without involving outsiders." "Outsiders?" Marcus's voice was dangerously quiet. "Ma'am, we're Rebecca's family. And I'm Jonathan's mother," Patricia shot back. "This family doesn't air its dirty laundry in public." "This family," Daniel said pointedly, "also doesn't seem to have much regard for the welfare of pregnant women." Jonathan held up his hands. "Enough. Mother, this isn't helping. Rebecca, let's discuss this privately." "Nothing about this marriage is private anymore," Rebecca said. "You made sure of that when you brought Vanessa into our bed." Patricia gasped dramatically. "Rebecca, really, there's no need for such vulgarity." "Vulgarity?" Rebecca's voice rose. "Your son commits adultery while I'm pregnant, and I'm the one being vulgar." "You need to calm down," Patricia said. "This stress can't be good for the baby." "The stress is caused by your son's actions," Marcus said sharply. "Don't blame Rebecca for reacting normally to betrayal." Jonathan stepped between his mother and the Thompson brothers. "This is getting out of hand. Rebecca, I think you should go stay with your family while we sort this out." "I agree," Rebecca said, "but I'll be taking some things with me." "What things?" Jonathan asked suspiciously. "My personal belongings, clothing, documents." "What documents?" Jonathan's voice sharpened. Daniel smiled coldly. "Bank statements, tax returns, business documents, anything that might be relevant to determining marital assets." "Those are confidential business documents," Jonathan protested. "Not anymore," Marcus said. "Your wife has legal right to review any documents that might affect her financial security." "I won't let you go on a fishing expedition through my private papers," Jonathan said. "Then you can explain to the judge why you're refusing to comply with discovery orders." Daniel replied. Patricia stepped forward. "Now see here, young man. This family has worked very hard to build its reputation. We won't have it destroyed by some vindictive—" "Careful," Marcus warned quietly. "You were about to say something you'd regret." Patricia's mouth snapped shut, but her eyes blazed with fury. Rebecca watched this standoff between her family and Jonathan's, feeling like she was seeing clearly for the first time in years. The Sterling family's wealth and social standing had always intimidated her. But watching her brothers face them down with quiet confidence, she realized something important. Money didn't make you untouchable. It just made you think you were. "Jonathan," she said quietly, drawing everyone's attention, "I want you to answer one question honestly." "What question?" "If I hadn't come home early yesterday, how long would this have gone on?" Jonathan hesitated, and in that hesitation, Rebecca saw the truth. This wasn't going to end. He wasn't planning to choose her. He was planning to have both his wife and family for appearances, his mistress for pleasure. "I thought so," she said sadly. "Daniel, I'd like to go pack my things now." "Of course, Marcus and I will supervise to ensure nothing goes missing." "This is ridiculous," Jonathan exploded. "You're treating me like a criminal in my own home." "Are you?" Marcus asked mildly. "A criminal? I mean—" The question hung in the air like a loaded gun. Jonathan's face went through several expressions before settling on cold fury. "I don't have to listen to this," he said. "Actually, you do," Daniel said. "At least until we're finished collecting Rebecca's belongings and documenting the current state of all assets." Patricia grabbed her son's arm. "Jonathan, call Richard. Don't say another word without your attorney present." "Good advice," Marcus agreed. "You're going to need a very good lawyer." As Rebecca headed upstairs to pack, She heard Jonathan making a frantic phone call. The confidence and arrogance he'd shown yesterday were cracking. For the first time, he was facing real consequences for his actions. Behind her, she could hear her brothers calmly discussing legal strategy, their voices professional and measured. They weren't intimidated by Jonathan's wealth or his mother's social position. They were simply doing their job protecting their sister. Rebecca had spent 5 years trying to fit into Jonathan's world, molding herself to meet his expectations and his family's standards. She'd forgotten that she came from a different kind of strength. The Thompson family might not have million-dollar homes or country club memberships, but they had something the Sterlings clearly lacked. They had each other's backs. As she folded her clothes into suitcases, Rebecca felt her daughter moving inside her belly. Soon, this little girl would be born into a complicated world, but she would also be born into a family that knew how to fight for what was right. That was a better inheritance than all of Jonathan's money. By Monday morning, Daniel had filed comprehensive temporary orders that froze every account Jonathan Sterling had access to. The speed and thoroughness of the legal action sent shockwaves through Jonathan's carefully constructed world. Rebecca sat in Daniel's downtown law office, reviewing documents while her brother explained the intricacies of asset protection during divorce proceedings. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she could see the city where she'd once felt so out of place among Jonathan's wealthy friends. "The judge granted everything we asked for," Daniel said, sliding a stack of papers across his mahogany desk. "All bank accounts frozen pending asset review. All business accounts require court approval for any transfers over $10,000. And most importantly, he can't touch any of the real estate without your signature." "How long does this last?" Rebecca asked. "Until we reach a settlement or complete the divorce proceedings. Could be months." Rebecca's phone rang. The caller ID showed Vanessa's name. "Should I answer?" she asked. Marcus, who was reviewing financial documents at the conference table, looked up. "Actually, yes, but we're going to record it. In this state, as long as one party consents to recording, it's legal evidence." Daniel quickly set up the recording equipment while Marcus coached Rebecca on what to listen for. "Try to get her talking about timeline, about Jonathan's plans, about anything financial," Marcus said. "And remember, she's not your friend anymore. She's a potential witness." Rebecca steeled herself and answered the call. "Rebecca," Vanessa's voice was tearful and shaky. "I've been trying to reach you since Friday. I haven't been taking calls," Rebecca said evenly. "Please, I need to explain. What happened between Jonathan and me? It wasn't supposed to go this far." "How far was it supposed to go?" "Vanessa, it started as just, I don't know, flirtation. He was so attentive, so interested in my work. You seem busy with the pregnancy, and he said he was feeling neglected." Rebecca felt a flash of anger, but kept her voice calm. "So this is my fault for being pregnant?" "No, God, no. I'm not saying that. I'm saying Jonathan made it seem like your marriage was already over, like you two were just staying together for appearances." Marcus leaned forward, making notes. "When did he tell you this?" Rebecca asked. "From the beginning, even before anything physical happened. He said you two were living separate lives, that you didn't understand his business world, that you weren't interested in his success." Each word was a knife, but Rebecca pressed on. "And you believed him." "I wanted to believe him," Vanessa admitted. "I've been in love with him since college. Rebecca, even when you two started dating, I thought, I hoped, you've been planning this for years." "Not planning, but when he started paying attention to me again, when he said he realized he'd chosen the wrong woman back in college." Rebecca closed her eyes. The manipulation ran deeper than she'd imagined. "Vanessa, did Jonathan ever talk to you about his business, about moving money or protecting assets?" There was a long pause. "Why are you asking about that?" "Just answer the question." He mentioned something about tax planning, making sure his wealth was protected in case anything happened to the business." "What kind of protection?" "I don't know the details. Offshore accounts, shell companies, rich people stuff. He said it was all legal, just smart planning." Marcus was writing furiously now. "When did these conversations happen?" Rebecca asked. "Over the past few months. He said with the baby coming, he needed to make sure his family's future was secure. By hiding money from his family." "He wasn't hiding it from you," Vanessa said defensively. He was protecting it for you, in case his business partners tried to take advantage, or if there were lawsuits. Rebecca almost laughed at the naivety. Vanessa, did it ever occur to you that a man who lies to his pregnant wife about having an affair might also lie to his mistress about his motives? Silence. He told me he was going to leave you, Vanessa whispered. After the baby was born, he said he wanted to be there for the birth, but then he was going to ask for a divorce. When did he tell you this? Last month. He said he'd already started putting things in place, making sure you'd be taken care of financially, but that he'd be free to marry me. Rebecca looked at her brothers, who were both staring at the phone with grim expressions. Vanessa, I need you to think carefully. Did Jonathan ever give you money, pay for things, support your business in any way? He helped me with some client expenses, advancing money for materials when my cash flow was tight. How much money? Over the past 6 months, maybe $50,000 total. Marcus's eyebrows shot up. Where did this money come from? Rebecca asked. His personal account, I assume. He said it was just loans to help my business. Did you sign loan documents, set up repayment plans? No. He said we'd work all that out later. After he was free. Rebecca felt sick. Jonathan had been using marital assets to support his mistress's business while hiding other assets from his pregnant wife. Vanessa, Rebecca said carefully, I need you to understand something. The money Jonathan gave you wasn't his personal money. It was marital property, money that belonged to both of us. What do you mean? I mean you've been unknowingly participating in the theft of marital assets. The silence stretched so long, Rebecca thought the call had dropped. I didn't know, Vanessa finally whispered. I swear I didn't know. Maybe not, but you know now. The question is, what are you going to do about it? What can I do? Rebecca looked at Marcus, who nodded encouragingly. You can tell the truth, Rebecca said, about everything. The timeline, the money, the conversations about asset protection. You can help make this right. If I do that, I'll lose everything. My business, my reputation. You already lost those things, Rebecca said sadly. The question is whether you want to make it worse by covering up financial crimes. Financial crimes. Vanessa, if Jonathan has been moving marital assets offshore while having an affair, that's fraud. If he's been using marital funds to support your business, that's theft. If you help him hide these actions, that makes you an accessory. I need to think about this. Don't think too long, Rebecca said. My brothers are very good at their jobs, and they're going to uncover everything eventually. The question is whether you want to be seen as a victim who was manipulated or as an accomplice who helped steal from a pregnant woman. After the call ended, the office fell silent except for the hum of the recording equipment. Well, Daniel said finally, that was illuminating. $50,000, Marcus mused. That's felony theft of marital assets. And if he used company funds? Corporate fraud, Daniel finished. Jonathan Sterling is in serious trouble. Rebecca leaned back in her chair, emotionally drained. I almost feel sorry for Vanessa. She really believes he was going to marry her. Classic narcissistic manipulation, Marcus said. Promise the mistress everything while systematically destroying the wife's position? He probably would have married Vanessa, then done the same thing to her in a few years. So what happens now? Rebecca asked. Now we wait, Daniel said. We've got them on record discussing hidden assets and the transfer of marital funds. We've got evidence of systematic deception and financial manipulation. And we've got a pregnant wife who was completely kept in the dark. Any judge is going to be furious, Marcus added, especially when they see the timeline. Jonathan started moving money the same month the affair began. That's not coincidence. That's planning. Rebecca's phone buzzed with a text message from Jonathan. We need to talk. This has gone too far. She showed the message to her brothers. Too far, Daniel laughed grimly. Mr. Sterling, this hasn't even gotten started yet. Marcus was already pulling up his laptop. I'm going to start digging into those shell companies Vanessa mentioned. If Jonathan thought he could hide assets from a criminal defense attorney with a background in financial crimes, he's about to learn just how wrong he was. Rebecca placed her hand on her belly, feeling her daughter's reassuring movement. I want him to face consequences for what he's done. Not just to me, but to our daughter. She deserves better than a father who lies and steals. She's going to get better, Daniel promised. We're going to make sure of that. The war was escalating, and the Thompson brothers were just getting started. Rebecca woke up Wednesday morning to the sound of car doors slamming outside her mother's house. When she peered through the curtains, her heart sank. 3 news vans were parked on the quiet residential street, and reporters were setting up cameras on the sidewalk. "Mom," she called down the hallway. "We have a problem." Grace hurried to the window and groaned. "How did they find out?" The answer came when Rebecca's phone rang. Marcus's name appeared on the screen. "Don't go outside," and he said without preamble. "The story broke this morning." "What story?" Local business journal picked up the court filings. Tech millionaire faces fraud allegations and messy divorce. It's everywhere now. Rebecca sank onto her childhood bed, feeling overwhelmed. "How bad is it?" "Mixed. The coverage is actually somewhat sympathetic to you. Pregnant wife discovers affair, uncovers financial deception. You come across as the victim. Jonathan? Not so much." "What's he saying?" His attorney released a statement calling the allegations vindictive lies from an unstable spouse seeking maximum financial gain. Pretty standard defense playbook, but it's not playing well given that you're 7 months pregnant. Grace appeared in the doorway with a cup of tea. "Daniel's here," she said. "He came in through the backyard to avoid the cameras." Daniel looked grim when he entered Rebecca's room. "We need to control this narrative before it gets out of hand. Jonathan's team is going to try to paint you as a gold digger who trapped him with a pregnancy." "That's ridiculous," Rebecca said. "We were married 3 years before I got pregnant." "Facts don't always matter in public relations battles," Daniel replied. "But we have some advantages. First, you're sympathetic pregnant, betrayed, abandoned. Second, the timeline works in our favor. The affair and the financial irregularities started simultaneously. What do? We give one interview," Daniel said. "Someone sympathetic, local, lets you tell your story in your own words. Then we shut it down and let the legal process work." Rebecca's phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. "Don't answer," Marcus said, appearing in the doorway. "I've been getting calls all morning from reporters, bloggers, even some tabloids. Word is spreading fast." "This is my nightmare," Rebecca said. "I never wanted any of this to be public." "Jonathan made it public the moment he decided to commit fraud," Marcus replied. "The business community is paying attention because if he'll steal from his pregnant wife, he'll steal from anyone." Rebecca's phone rang again. This time it was Patricia Sterling. "Answer it," Marcus said, "but put it on speaker." "Rebecca," Patricia's voice was ice cold. "This media circus needs to stop immediately." "I didn't start it," Rebecca replied. "You filed those ridiculous court documents. You involve lawyers. You're destroying my son's reputation with your vindictive allegations." "Mrs. de Sterling," Daniel interjected. "This is Daniel Thompson. These aren't allegations. These are documented financial irregularities that your son will need to explain in court." "Mr. Thompson, I don't know what game you think you're playing, but my family has resources you can't imagine. We will not be extorted." "Extorted?" Marcus's voice was dangerously quiet. "Ma'am, your son committed adultery while his wife was pregnant, then attempted to hide marital assets. No one is extorting anyone." "Jonathan made a mistake," Patricia said dismissively. "Men sometimes stray. It doesn't justify this public humiliation." "A mistake," Rebecca found her voice, anger giving her strength. 6 months of lying to me while I carried his child was a mistake. You need to think about what's best for the baby," Patricia continued. "This stress cannot be good for your pregnancy. Wouldn't it be better to handle this quietly, within the family?" "Your son had 6 months to handle this quietly," Grace said, entering the room and taking the phone. "He chose to lie and cheat instead. I'm Grace Thompson, Rebecca's mother, and I want you to know that this family will not be intimidated by your money or your threats." "I'm not making threats," Patricia said coldly. "I'm simply pointing out that public scandals hurt everyone involved, including unborn children." "You know what hurts unborn children," Grace shot back. "Fathers who steal their inheritance to hide it from their mothers." The line went dead. "Well," Marcus said, "that could have gone better." Daniel was already on his phone. I'm calling Channel 7. Rebecca, are you willing to do a 10-minute interview, just the basics who you are? What happened? How you found out? Will it help? It'll establish your credibility before Jonathan's team can destroy it. Right now, you're an unknown. Let people see that you're a real person, not some gold-digging stereotype. Rebecca looked at her family, her mother's protective fury, her brother's professional determination. She thought about her daughter, who would grow up in a world where this story would always be part of their family history. Okay, she said, but I want to be clear about something. I'm not doing this for revenge. I'm doing this because what Jonathan did was wrong, and actions have consequences. Perfect, Daniel said. That's exactly the message we want to send. 2 hours later, Rebecca sat in her mother's living room across from Janet Morrison, a veteran local reporter known for her fair but thorough interviews. The camera crew had set up discreetly, respecting the small space. Mrs. Sterling, Janet began, you've been married to Jonathan Sterling for 5 years. Did you have any indication that he was having an affair? I knew something was wrong, Rebecca said calmly. He was working late more often, taking calls he wouldn't explain. But I trusted him. I thought it was stress about becoming a father. How did you discover the affair? I came home early from a doctor's appointment and found him with my best friend in our bedroom. That must have been devastating. It was. But what's been worse is learning that the affair was just part of a larger pattern of deception. While I was planning our daughter's nursery, he was planning to leave me with nothing. You've accused him of hiding assets. What evidence do you have? Our attorneys have uncovered systematic transfers to offshore accounts and shell companies, all beginning around the time his affair started. He was literally stealing from his unborn child to prepare for a life with another woman. Janet leaned forward. Mr. Sterling's attorney has called these allegations vindictive lies. How do you respond? The financial records speak for themselves. This isn't about vindication. It's about making sure my daughter has the security and inheritance that rightfully belongs to her. What do you want people to know about your situation? Rebecca took a breath, placing her hand on her belly. I want them to know that wealth doesn't make you untouchable, that pregnant women don't have to accept betrayal and theft just because their husbands have money. And I want other women in similar situations to know that they have rights and they have options. The interview ran on the evening news, and the response was immediate. Rebecca's phone rang constantly with calls of support from friends, colleagues, even strangers who had seen the story. But the most important call came from an unlisted number just after the newscast ended. Mrs. Sterling. This is Amanda Chen. Sorry, Amanda Rodriguez. I was married to your husband before you. Rebecca's blood went cold. I'm sorry. What? Jonathan Sterling? I was his first wife? And honey, what he's doing to you, he did to me too. I've been building a case for years, and I think it's time we talked. Rebecca looked at her brothers, who were already reaching for their phones. The war had just taken an unexpected turn. Thursday morning brought an unwelcome surprise. Vanessa Mitchell stood on Grace Thompson's front porch, looking haggard and desperate. Rebecca watched from the kitchen window as her former best friend shifted nervously, clutching a manila envelope. She's been out there for 20 minutes, Grace said. Should I call the police? No, Rebecca said, though her heart was racing. Let me talk to her. But Marcus and Daniel should hear this. Her brothers flanked her as she opened the front door. Vanessa's eyes were red-rimmed, and she'd clearly been crying. Rebecca, please, I need to talk to you. We don't have anything to talk about, Rebecca said coldly. Yes, we do. Vanessa held up the envelope. It's about Jonathan, about things he asked me to do. Marcus stepped forward. What kind of things? Vanessa's eyes darted between the brothers nervously. Can we talk privately without them? No, Rebecca said firmly. Anything you have to say to me, you can say in front of my family. Fine. Vanessa took a shaky breath. Jonathan wants me to get you to sign something. He said it would protect you. Make sure you get what you deserve in the divorce. Daniel held out his hand. Let me see it. Vanessa hesitated, then handed over the envelope. Daniel scanned the documents inside, his expression growing darker with each page. This is a settlement agreement, he said. One that would waive Rebecca's right to discovery of hidden assets. Very convenient. He told me it was to protect her, Vanessa said weakly. And you believed him? Marcus asked incredulously. I didn't know what to believe anymore. Vanessa snapped. Everything's falling apart. My business, my reputation, everything. Good, Rebecca said simply. Vanessa flinched as if she'd been slapped. Rebecca, please. I know I hurt you, but I never meant for any of this to happen. What exactly did you think would happen when you started sleeping with my husband? I thought, Vanessa's voice broke. I thought he loved me. I thought we were going to be together. While I was pregnant with his child, he said your marriage was over anyway, that you two were just going through the motions. Rebecca felt a familiar flash of rage. Even if that were true, which it wasn't, what kind of person sleeps with her best friend's husband while she's pregnant? Someone who was lonely and stupid and believed the wrong man, Vanessa said, tears streaming down her face. Someone who was willing to betray the person who trusted her most, Rebecca corrected. Marcus was studying the settlement documents. These are interesting, very specific clauses about asset disclosure, almost like Jonathan knew exactly what he needed to hide. What do you mean? Rebecca asked. These waivers aren't generic. They're tailored to prevent discovery of the exact types of accounts and transfers we've been uncovering. Someone with detailed knowledge of Jonathan's financial structure wrote this. Daniel's phone rang. He stepped aside to take the call, returning with a grim expression. That was our forensic accountant, he said. We found 3 more offshore accounts. The total hidden assets are approaching $2 million. Vanessa went pale. $2 million. Did you know about these accounts? Marcus asked sharply. No, I swear I didn't know. Jonathan just said he was protecting his assets from business partners who might try to take advantage. By stealing from his pregnant wife, Rebecca asked. He didn't say he was stealing, Vanessa protested. He said it was complicated, that there were legal reasons. Vanessa, Daniel said carefully, we need to know everything. Every conversation about money, every document he showed you, every explanation he gave for his actions. Why should I help you? Vanessa asked bitterly. My life is already ruined. Because if you don't help us, Marcus said quietly, you're going to be charged as an accessory to felony theft of marital assets. Vanessa's knees buckled, and she grabbed the porch railing for support. What? The $50,000 Jonathan gave your business came from marital accounts? Daniel explained. That money legally belonged to both Jonathan and Rebecca. By accepting it, you participated in the theft of Rebecca's property. I didn't know, Vanessa whispered. Ignorance isn't a defense when you should have known better, Marcus said. You knew he was married. You knew Rebecca was pregnant. When a married man starts giving you large sums of money, you don't ask questions. He said they were loans, without paperwork, without interest, without repayment schedules. Daniel shook his head. No reasonable person would believe those were legitimate business loans. Rebecca watched her former friend crumble and felt an unexpected pang of sympathy. Vanessa had been manipulated too, just differently. Vanessa, she said quietly, you have one chance to do the right thing here. Help us understand what Jonathan has been doing, and we'll make sure the prosecutor knows you cooperated. What do you want to know? Everything. Start from the beginning. Vanessa sank onto the porch steps, looking defeated. It started at your birthday party last year. Jonathan was complaining about feeling neglected. Said you didn't appreciate everything he provided. I was 6 months pregnant and exhausted, Rebecca said. I know that now, but at the time I felt sorry for him. He seemed so lonely. Marcus was taking notes. When did it become physical? 2 months later, he invited me to lunch to discuss decorating his office. One thing led to another. And when did the financial discussions start? Almost immediately. He said he needed to be smart about protecting his wealth, especially with a baby coming. Said there were too many people who might try to take advantage of a new father. Did he specifically mention hiding money from Rebecca? Daniel asked. Vanessa hesitated. Not directly, but he made it clear that what Rebecca didn't know couldn't hurt her. He said women got emotional about money during pregnancy. Rebecca clenched her fists. Emotional about money or emotional about being lied to and stolen from? He made it sound like he was protecting you, Vanessa said miserably. Like if there were business problems, you'd be safer if the money was somewhere secure. Business problems he never mentioned to his wife, Marcus noted. When did he start giving you money? Daniel asked. 3 months ago. My biggest client stiffed me on a payment, and I was going to lose my office lease. Jonathan offered to help. How much? 20,000 initially, then smaller amounts when I had cash flow issues. Always in cash. Wire transfers to my business account. He said it was easier for tax purposes. Rebecca felt sick. While she'd been budgeting carefully for baby expenses, Jonathan had been sending tens of thousands of dollars to his mistress. Vanessa, Marcus said, did Jonathan ever ask you to do anything else, sign documents, open accounts, anything like that? He wanted me to open a business account in Delaware. Said it would be better for tax purposes if I ever had clients there. The brothers exchanged looks. Did you open the account? Daniel asked. Yes, but I never used it. He said he'd let me know when the time was right. Do you still have access to this account? Yes, why? Because, Marcus said grimly. Delaware accounts are often used for money laundering. Jonathan may have been planning to funnel stolen assets through your business to make them look legitimate. Vanessa's face went white. Oh God, he was setting me up. Wasn't he making me an accomplice without me knowing it? It looks that way, Daniel confirmed. Rebecca studied her former friend's stricken face. Vanessa was realizing what Rebecca had already understood. Jonathan Sterling was a master manipulator who saw everyone around him as tools to be used. Vanessa, Rebecca said quietly, you need to decide who you want to be in this story. The woman who helped a man steal from his pregnant wife, or the woman who was manipulated but chose to do the right thing when she learned the truth. Vanessa looked up with tears streaming down her face. What do you need me to do? Tell the truth, Rebecca said simply. All of it, in court, under oath. If I do that, I'll lose everything. You already lost everything, Marcus said, not unkindly. The question is whether you want to lose your freedom too? Vanessa nodded slowly. Okay, I'll testify. I'll tell them everything Jonathan told me, everything he asked me to do. And the Delaware account, Daniel asked. I'll give you all the information, account numbers, access codes, everything. Rebecca felt a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Justice was coming, but the cost had been enormous. Her marriage, her friendship, her sense of security all destroyed by one man's greed and selfishness. But as she watched Vanessa finally choose to do the right thing, Rebecca realized something important. She was stronger than she'd ever known, and her daughter would be born into a world where truth mattered more than money. That was worth fighting for. Rebecca woke Friday morning with sharp pains in her lower back and a feeling that something was wrong. She'd been having trouble sleeping since the media attention began, and the stress of Vanessa's revelations the day before had left her emotionally drained. Mom, she called from her childhood bedroom. I think I need to call Dr. Williams. Grace appeared in the doorway, took one look at her daughter's pale face, and reached for the phone. What's wrong, sweetheart? Back pain, cramping? It might be nothing, but... Rebecca winced as another wave of discomfort hit her. We're going to the hospital, Grace said decisively. Daniel Marcus, we need to go now. The drive to Regional Medical Center felt endless. Rebecca tried to stay calm, but at 32 weeks pregnant, any signs of labor were dangerous. Her daughter wasn't ready to be born yet. Dr. Sarah Williams met them in the emergency room, her face serious but reassuring. Let's get you monitored and see what's happening, she said, guiding Rebecca to a wheelchair. In the maternity ward, Rebecca was connected to fetal monitors while Dr. Williams examined her. The steady sound of her daughter's heartbeat filled the room, strong and reassuring. Good news, Dr. Williams said. The baby's heart rate is excellent, and you're not in active labor, but your blood pressure is elevated, and there are signs of stress. What kind of stress? Grace asked. The kind that comes from emotional trauma during pregnancy. Rebecca, I know you're going through a difficult divorce, but this level of stress can trigger preterm labor. What do we do? Rebecca asked. Bed rest for the next week, minimum, and we need to discuss ways to manage your stress levels. That's when Jonathan appeared in the doorway. Rebecca, he said, pushing past Marcus who tried to block him. I heard you were in the hospital. Is the baby okay? Get out, Rebecca said quietly. I have a right to be here. That's my child too. Mr. Sterling, Dr. Williams said firmly. "This is a medical situation. Only people who help the patient stay calm are welcome." "I am calm," Jonathan said, though his agitation was obvious. "I'm concerned about my wife and unborn child." "Your pregnant wife who you've been cheating on?" Marcus asked coldly. "This isn't the place for family drama," Jonathan snapped. "You created the family drama," Daniel pointed out. Rebecca felt her blood pressure monitor beeping faster. The stress of having Jonathan in the room was affecting both her and the baby. "Everyone out except family," Dr. Williams ordered. "Now." "I am family," Jonathan protested. "No," Rebecca said, finding her voice. "You stopped being family when you chose Vanessa over us." Jonathan's face hardened. "I'm not going anywhere. I have legal rights here." That's when Patricia Sterling appeared, carrying a briefcase and wearing the expression of someone on a mission. "What's she doing here?" Grace asked. "Mrs. Sterling has asked to speak with Rebecca," a nurse explained apologetically. "She says it's urgent." Patricia pushed into the room despite Dr. Williams' protest. "Rebecca, I'm glad you're all right. We need to discuss custody arrangements." "Custody arrangements?" Rebecca's voice rose, causing the monitors to beep more frantically. "For the baby," Patricia said calmly, opening her briefcase. "Given your obvious instability and the stress you're putting yourself under, we think it's best if Jonathan has primary custody." "Are you insane?" Marcus exploded. Patricia pulled out legal documents. "We have papers here showing that Rebecca has been making false accusations against Jonathan, causing unnecessary media attention, and putting the baby's health at risk through her vindictive behavior." "Get her out of here," Dr. Williams demanded. "This patient needs to remain calm, and you're causing dangerous stress levels." "I'm protecting my grandchild," Patricia said coldly. "Your grandchild?" Grace stepped forward, her voice deadly quiet. "Your son is a cheating thief who's been stealing from his pregnant wife, and you want to talk about protecting the baby." "Jonathan made a mistake," Patricia said dismissively. "Rebecca is having a public breakdown." "Security," Dr. Williams called. But Rebecca had heard enough. Despite the monitors and IVs, she struggled to sit up. "Listen to me very carefully," she said, her voice shaking with fury. "Your son destroyed our marriage while I was pregnant. He stole money that belongs to our daughter. He lied to me every day for 6 months while I carried his child." "Rebecca, you need to calm down," Dr. Williams warned. "And now," Rebecca continued, ignoring the doctor, "you come into my hospital room while I'm having pregnancy complications and threaten to take my baby. You're not protecting anyone. You're trying to help your criminal son avoid consequences." The monitors were beeping rapidly now, and Dr. Williams was pushing emergency buttons. "Everyone out," she ordered. "Security." Hospital security arrived and escorted Jonathan and Patricia from the room, though not before Jonathan made a scene that had nurses talking about calling the police. "That man cannot be anywhere near this patient," Dr. Williams told Marcus and Daniel. "I'm writing orders for the medical team. He's causing dangerous stress levels." Rebecca felt tears streaming down her face. "I can't do this anymore. I can't keep fighting while I'm trying to keep my baby safe." "Yes, you can," Grace said firmly, taking her daughter's hand. "You're the strongest person I know, and you're not fighting alone." Daniel was already on his phone. "I'm getting a restraining order. Jonathan cannot be within 500 feet of Rebecca or any medical facility where she's receiving treatment." "Can we do that?" Rebecca asked. "Given what just happened, absolutely. He nearly caused you to go into preterm labor through his aggressive behavior." Dr. Williams checked the monitors again. "Your blood pressure is coming down, but I want you to stay overnight for observation. And Rebecca, I need you to understand something important." "What?" "You have more power in this situation than you realize. Jonathan's behavior today shows he's desperate. Desperate people make mistakes." Marcus nodded grimly. "She's right. Coming here, bringing his mother with legal papers to threaten a woman in labor, that's not the behavior of someone who thinks he's winning." "What do you mean?" Rebecca asked. "I mean Jonathan Sterling just showed his hand," Daniel said. "He's scared. Our investigation is uncovering things that could send him to federal prison, and he knows it." Rebecca placed her hand on her belly, feeling her daughter's reassuring movement. The little girl was strong, weathering this storm as well as her mother was. "How much trouble is he in?" she asked, based on what we've found so far, tax evasion, wire fraud, theft of marital assets, and now potentially attempted extortion, Marcus said. We're talking about decades in federal prison if he's convicted. And today he just handed us evidence of intimidation and harassment of a pregnant woman, Daniel added. No jury's going to have any sympathy for that. Rebecca closed her eyes, feeling exhausted but also oddly relieved. For months, she'd felt powerless against Jonathan's manipulation and control, but lying in this hospital bed, surrounded by family who loved her, she realized something important. She wasn't the victim in this story anymore. She was the woman who was going to make sure Jonathan Sterling faced justice for what he'd done. And their daughter would be born into a world where her mother had fought for what was right, no matter how difficult the battle became. That was a legacy worth the fight. Rebecca spent 2 days in the hospital under careful monitoring before Dr. Williams agreed to discharge her with strict orders for bed rest. The stress-related complications had stabilized, but the message was clear: her body was responding to the emotional trauma of the divorce proceedings. She was resting in her mother's living room when Daniel arrived with news that made her blood run cold. Jonathan's attorney has made a settlement offer, he said, spreading documents across the coffee table. It's substantial? How substantial? Grace asked, bringing Rebecca a cup of herbal tea. $5 million plus the house, plus full college funding for the baby, Daniel said. On the surface, it looks incredibly generous. What's the catch? Rebecca asked, because she knew there had to be one. Multiple catches, Marcus said, entering from the kitchen where he'd been on a conference call. First, you'd have to sign a comprehensive non-disclosure agreement. No talking to media, no discussing the marriage or divorce, no sharing details about Jonathan's business practices. Second, Daniel continued, you'd waive all rights to future discovery of assets. Whatever Jonathan has hidden stays hidden. And third, Marcus said grimly, there's a clause that would prevent you from cooperating with any future criminal investigations. Rebecca felt her heart sink. They know about the federal investigation. What federal investigation? Grace asked sharply. Daniel sighed. I didn't want to worry you while you were in the hospital, but the FBI has opened a preliminary investigation into Jonathan's offshore accounts. The transfers we uncovered triggered automatic reports to FinCEN, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. How bad is it for him? Rebecca asked. Potentially very bad, Marcus said. Wire fraud, tax evasion, money laundering. These are serious federal crimes. If convicted, he could face 15 to 20 years in prison. And he wants me to sign away my right to testify against him. Essentially, yes, the settlement is designed to buy your silence and limit the evidence available to federal prosecutors. Rebecca stared at the papers, feeling the weight of the decision. $5 million would secure her daughter's future. They could disappear, start over somewhere new, build a life free from scandal and legal battles. But Jonathan would get away with everything. What does your gut tell you? Grace asked quietly. That this is blood money, Rebecca said without hesitation. He's trying to buy his way out of consequences. Daniel nodded approvingly. That's what we think too. But Rebecca, you need to understand what rejecting this offer means. The federal investigation could take years. There's no guarantee of conviction, and if he's acquitted, you might end up with far less in the divorce settlement. Or, Marcus added, if he's convicted and goes to prison, there might not be any money left after legal fees and asset forfeiture. Rebecca's phone rang. The caller ID showed Vanessa's name. She's been calling all morning, Grace said. Should you answer? Yes, Marcus said. We're still recording all conversations with potential witnesses, Rebecca answered on speaker. Hello, Vanessa. Rebecca, thank God, I've been trying to reach you. Jonathan wants to meet. About what? The settlement offer. He says if you sign it, he'll make sure I'm protected too. He'll take full responsibility for the business loans. Make it clear I didn't know they were improper. Rebecca looked at her brothers, who were both shaking their heads. Vanessa, she said carefully, did Jonathan ask you to call me? He's here with me now. He wants to explain why the settlement is good for everyone. Put him on the phone, Marcus said. Who was that? Vanessa asked. My brother. Put Jonathan on the phone. There was muffled conversation. Then Jonathan's voice came through the speaker. Rebecca, I hope you're feeling better. I was worried when I heard about the hospital stay. Cut the act, Jonathan, what do you want? I want to end this madness before it destroys all of us. The settlement offer is generous more than generous. It gives you financial security and protects our daughter from growing up in the shadow of a messy public trial. What about protecting her from having a criminal for a father? I haven't committed any crimes, Jonathan said, but his voice lacked conviction. The offshore accounts are legal tax planning strategies. Rich people do this all the time. Rich people don't usually transfer marital assets without their spouse's knowledge, Daniel interjected. Who is this? Jonathan demanded. Daniel Thompson, Rebecca's attorney, Mr. Sterling. Are you aware that this phone call could be considered witness intimidation? I'm not intimidating anyone. I'm trying to have a reasonable conversation about settling our differences. By using your mistress as an intermediary, Marcus asked, by threatening her if Rebecca doesn't comply. I'm not threatening anyone, Jonathan said, but Rebecca could hear the strain in his voice. Then what happens to Vanessa if I don't sign the settlement? Rebecca asked. Silence. Jonathan, Rebecca pressed. Vanessa made her own choices, he said finally. I can't protect her from the consequences if this goes to trial. Meaning what? Exactly. Meaning the prosecutors will need someone to blame for the money transfers to her business? If I'm fighting federal charges, I won't be able to help her. Rebecca felt sick. Even now, Jonathan was manipulating both women, using each as leverage against the other. Let me make something very clear, she said, her voice steady despite her anger. I'm not signing anything that helps you escape justice, and I'm not letting you destroy Vanessa's life to save your own. You're making a mistake, Jonathan said, his mask slipping. You have no idea what you're dealing with. The federal government doesn't care about your feelings or your family. They'll destroy everyone connected to this case. Is that a threat? Marcus asked sharply. It's a reality check. Rebecca, if you don't take this settlement, you'll end up with nothing. I'll make sure of it. There it is, Daniel said quietly. Did everyone hear that threat? The line went dead. Rebecca leaned back against the couch cushions, emotionally drained but strangely relieved. Jonathan had finally shown his true colors completely. Well, Marcus said, that was recorded. Threatening to leave your pregnant ex-wife with nothing unless she signs a document to help you avoid federal prosecution? How much trouble did he just cause himself? Rebecca asked. A lot, Daniel said grimly. Obstruction of justice, witness intimidation, coercion. We're forwarding this recording to the FBI within the hour. Rebecca's phone rang again. This time it was Vanessa, and she sounded terrified. Rebecca, something's wrong. After Jonathan talked to you, he started making phone calls. He's talking about leaving the country, about accounts in the Cayman Islands that no one knows about. Where are you now? Marcus asked. Still at Jonathan's office. He thinks I'm in the bathroom, but I'm hiding in a conference room. Rebecca, I think he's planning to run. Rebecca looked at her brothers, who were already reaching for their phones. Vanessa, Daniel said urgently. Can you see what he's doing? Is he packing anything? Making travel arrangements? He's got his passport out, and he's printing something that looks like bank documents. There's a suitcase by his desk. Get out of there now, Marcus ordered. Go straight to the FBI field office downtown. Ask for Agent Sarah Chen. We've been working with her team. What about Rebecca? Should I sign the settlement? Absolutely not, Rebecca said firmly. And Vanessa, thank you for finally doing the right thing. After the call ended, the room fell silent except for the sound of phones buzzing as Daniel and Marcus coordinated with law enforcement. Is it over? Rebecca asked. It's about to be, Marcus said. Jonathan Sterling is about to learn that there are some things money can't buy. Like what? Like a way out of federal prison, Daniel said grimly. His offer just became evidence of his guilt, and his threats just made everything worse. Rebecca placed her hand on her belly, feeling her daughter's movement. Soon, this nightmare would be over. Her daughter would be born into a world where justice had been served and truth had prevailed. That was worth more than any settlement Jonathan Sterling could ever offer. Rebecca was feeding her mother's cat when her phone rang Saturday morning. The caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize, but something about it seemed familiar. Hello, she answered cautiously. Mrs. Sterling. This is Amanda Rodriguez. We spoke briefly earlier this week, I was Jonathan's first wife. Rebecca's heart skipped. Amanda, yes, I remember. You said you'd been building a case. I have. And after seeing the news coverage of your situation, I think it's time we compared notes. Can you meet today? Rebecca looked around the kitchen where her family was having breakfast. Can you come here? I'm not supposed to be traveling. Of course. I'll be there in an hour. Amanda Rodriguez arrived, looking nothing like what Rebecca had expected. She was a confident woman in her early 40s, dressed professionally and carrying a briefcase that looked like it meant business. Thank you for seeing me, Amanda said as Grace led her into the living room. I know this must be overwhelming. You said Jonathan did to you what he's doing to me, Rebecca said directly. What did you mean? Amanda opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. I was married to Jonathan Sterling from 2008 to 2012. 4 years of what I thought was a happy marriage, until I discovered he'd been systematically hiding assets and having affairs. Affairs, plural, Grace asked. 3 that I could prove, probably more. Amanda spread photographs and documents across the coffee table. But the affairs were just the symptom. The real disease was his pattern of financial manipulation. Marcus and Daniel joined them, introduced themselves, and studied Amanda's materials with professional interest. What kind of manipulation? Daniel asked. Shell companies, offshore accounts, fake business expenses. Amanda listed. He'd set up accounts I never knew about, transfer marital assets, then claim business losses to avoid paying me anything substantial in the divorce. How much did he steal from you? Rebecca asked. Approximately $3 million. Money that was legally mine, hidden so well it took me 4 years and 3 private investigators to find it. Marcus looked up sharply. You found it, most of it. And here's the interesting part. He used the exact same methods with you that he used with me. The same shell companies, the same offshore banks, even some of the same fake business partners. Rebecca felt cold. This was all planned from the beginning. Not from the beginning of your marriage, Amanda said, but definitely from the moment he started feeling trapped or when he found his next target. It's a pattern, Rebecca. He finds vulnerable women, marries them, builds a life that looks perfect from the outside, then systematically destroys them when he gets bored. Vulnerable how? Grace asked defensively. Women without strong family support, women who depend on him financially, women who trust him completely, Amanda explained, then looked at Rebecca. I'm guessing he encouraged you to quit your job, told you that you didn't need to worry about money because he'd take care of everything. Rebecca nodded numbly. It was exactly what had happened. And he probably made you feel like his financial success was partly your fault, like you didn't appreciate his hard work or understand the pressures he was under. Yes, Rebecca whispered. Classic narcissistic manipulation, Amanda said. Make the victim feel guilty for the abuser's behavior. Daniel was studying financial documents. Amanda, this is incredible work. How did you get access to these records? Persistence and a very good forensic accountant. It took years, but we tracked down every hidden account. And here's the thing, most of them are still active. Still active? Marcus looked up sharply. Jonathan never closed the accounts he used to hide money from me. He just kept using them. Same banks, same methods, just new transfers. Rebecca felt like the room was spinning. So he's been planning this for years, even before he met me. He's been planning this since his first divorce failed to bankrupt me, Amanda said grimly. Rebecca, your husband isn't just a cheater. He's a predator who specializes in financial abuse. And you're not his first victim. Marcus was taking notes rapidly. Amanda, are you willing to testify in federal court? I've been waiting years for this opportunity, Amanda said firmly. When I heard about Rebecca's case on the news, I knew this was finally my chance to stop him. Stop him from what? Rebecca asked. Amanda pulled out another file. From doing this to other women, Rebecca, I've been tracking Jonathan's patterns for 8 years. After our divorce, he moved to Seattle and married a woman named Jennifer Walsh. Same pattern, whirlwind romance, quick marriage, financial isolation, then affairs and asset hiding. What happened to her? Divorce finalized 3 years ago. She got almost nothing. But here's the thing, I've been in contact with Jennifer, and she's been investigating too. We've been building a case together. Daniel leaned forward. A case for what? RICO charges? Racketeering. Jonathan Sterling isn't just hiding assets from individual wives. He's running a systematic enterprise of marriage fraud. Rebecca felt the room spinning. Marriage fraud. He targets women specifically for their assets or earning potential, marries them under false pretenses, then systematically transfers their wealth to hidden accounts before abandoning them through orchestrated affairs and divorces. Grace made a strangled sound. That's sociopathic. It's also federal racketeering, Marcus said grimly. If you can prove a pattern of organized criminal activity, we can, Amanda said confidently. Jennifer and I have documentation spanning 12 years. 3 wives, millions in stolen assets. The same methods every time. Rebecca's phone rang. The caller ID showed Agent Sarah Chen from the FBI. Mrs. Sterling, Agent Chen said when Rebecca answered. We need to meet immediately. Mr. Sterling has fled the country. What Rebecca's voice came out as a squeak. He boarded a private jet to the Cayman Islands at 6 this morning. We have reason to believe he's attempting to access hidden accounts before we can freeze them. Amanda leaned toward the phone. Agent Chen, this is Amanda Rodriguez. I'm Jonathan Sterling's first wife, and I have information about those Cayman accounts. Mrs. Rodriguez, we've been looking for you. Can you come to the federal building immediately? We'll all come, Marcus said. Amanda, this is exactly what we needed. As they prepared to leave for the FBI office, Rebecca tried to process everything she'd learned. Jonathan wasn't just a cheating husband, he was a career criminal who had systematically destroyed multiple women's lives. How many others do you think there are? She asked Amanda as they gathered their documents. I don't know. But Rebecca, here's what I want you to understand. You're the one who's going to stop him. Jennifer and I gathered evidence, but we were isolated, fighting alone. You have family support, media attention, and most importantly, you caught him in the act of actively hiding assets. What does that mean? It means his pattern is finally going to be broken. He got sloppy because he thought you were helpless. But you're not helpless. You're a Thompson. As they drove toward the federal building, Rebecca reflected on the journey that had brought her here. 3 weeks ago, she'd been a naive wife planning a nursery for her first child. Now she was the key witness in a federal racketeering case against a serial financial predator. Rebecca, Daniel said from the driver's seat, I need you to understand something. What we're about to do is going to change everything. Once you testify in a federal case, there's no going back to a quiet life. Good, Rebecca said firmly. I don't want a quiet life if it means other women will suffer what we've suffered. The media attention will be intense, Marcus warned. Jonathan's crimes are going to be front-page news across the country. Let them be, Rebecca said, surprising herself with her conviction. Let every woman in America know that men like Jonathan Sterling exist, and that they can be stopped. Amanda smiled proudly. Jennifer is going to love you. She's been saying for years that we needed someone with the courage to take this all the way. As they pulled into the federal building parking garage, Rebecca felt her daughter kick strongly inside her belly. This little girl was going to be born into a world where her mother had helped bring down a serial predator, where justice had been served, and where other women were safer because of their courage. That was a legacy worth any amount of public scrutiny or personal cost. The FBI was waiting, and the final phase of the battle was about to begin. But Rebecca Thompson Sterling was ready for war. 3 weeks later, Rebecca's contractions started at 2 in the morning. She was in federal court when her water broke during a recess in Jonathan's extradition hearing. The baby's coming now, she told Marcus, gripping his arm as pain radiated across her belly. Now, as in right now. As in call Dr. Williams and get me to the hospital immediately. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. As FBI agents were reading Jonathan Sterling his rights via video conference from a Cayman Islands jail, his daughter was deciding to make her entrance into the world. 8 hours later, Emma Grace Sterling took her first breath in Regional Medical Center, surrounded by the Thompson family and Agent Sarah Chen, who had become an unexpected friend during the federal investigation. She's perfect, Grace whispered, tears streaming down her face as she held her granddaughter. She's a fighter, Doctor, Williams said approvingly. 7 pounds, 4 ounces, and those are some powerful lungs. Rebecca gazed at her daughter's face and felt a peace she hadn't experienced in months. Emma had Jonathan's dark eyes but Rebecca's stubborn chin. She was going to be just fine. Any word from the courthouse? Rebecca asked Agent Chen. Jonathan waived his right to fight extradition. He'll be back in federal custody by the end of the week. What happens then? Federal grand jury, then trial, with Amanda's evidence, Jennifer's testimony, and the financial records we've uncovered. We're looking at conviction on multiple counts of wire fraud, money laundering, and racketeering. Marcus entered the hospital room with coffee and news. The federal prosecutor wants to meet with you next week. But Rebecca, you should know Jonathan's attorney has reached out about a plea deal. What kind of deal? Full confession, cooperation with asset recovery, and a guilty plea to all federal charges in exchange for a 20-year sentence instead of life. Rebecca looked down at Emma, who was sleeping peacefully despite the chaos surrounding her birth. Will that get the money back for all of us? Most of it. The FBI has located accounts totaling over $8 million hidden across 4 countries. After legal fees and penalties, you, Amanda, and Jennifer should each recover the majority of what was stolen. And other women will be warned about his methods. His case will be studied in law schools and FBI training programs for decades, Agent Chen said. Jonathan Sterling is going to become the textbook example of marriage fraud and financial predation. Dr. Williams knocked on the door. Rebecca, you have visitors who insist they're family. Amanda Rodriguez and Jennifer Walsh entered carrying flowers and wearing the expressions of women who had finally seen justice served. She's beautiful, Jennifer said, looking at Emma with tears in her eyes. And she's going to grow up knowing her mother is a hero. We're all heroes, Rebecca said firmly. We survived him, we fought back, and we won. Amanda nodded. The 3 of us took down a predator who thought he was untouchable. That's going to save other women from going through what we did. What happens now? Rebecca asked. After the trial, after everything settles. Now we live our lives, Jennifer said simply. The lives he tried to steal from us. I'm starting a nonprofit, Amanda announced. Financial abuse education and support for women going through complex divorces. Jennifer's going to help run it. What about you, Rebecca? Agent Chen asked. Any plans? Rebecca looked around the room at the women who had become her unexpected sisters, at her family who had never wavered in their support, at her daughter who would grow up knowing her worth was never negotiable. I'm going to be a mother, she said, and maybe write a book about all this. Let other women know they're not alone. 6 months later, Rebecca stood in the federal courthouse as Jonathan Sterling was sentenced to 22 years in federal prison. He looked smaller somehow, diminished by the weight of his crimes and the collapse of his carefully constructed facade. When the judge asked if Rebecca wanted to make a victim impact statement, she declined. She had nothing left to say to Jonathan Sterling, but she had plenty to say to the cameras waiting outside. My name is Rebecca Thompson, she said, holding 6-month-old Emma in her arms. 8 months ago, I discovered my husband was having an affair. What I didn't know was that I was married to a career criminal who had systematically destroyed multiple women's lives. The reporters pressed closer, but Rebecca wasn't intimidated anymore. I want every woman watching this to understand something important. If a man isolates you financially, if he hides money or makes you feel guilty for asking questions about your own assets, if he makes you feel crazy for trusting your instincts, those are not signs of a difficult marriage. Those are signs of financial abuse. What would you tell other women in similar situations? A reporter asked. That they're stronger than they know, that their family and friends will support them if they ask for help, and that men like Jonathan Sterling only have power over you if you let them. Emma babbled happily in her arms, completely unaware of the significance of the moment. Most importantly, Rebecca continued, I want them to know that justice is possible. It might take time, it might be difficult, but truth has a way of winning in the end. As they left the courthouse, Rebecca reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She'd lost a marriage but gained 3 sisters in Amanda, Jennifer and Vanessa, who had ultimately testified against Jonathan, despite the personal cost. She'd lost financial security temporarily, but gained the knowledge that she could build wealth on her own terms. She'd lost the naive trust that had made her vulnerable, but gained the wisdom to protect herself and her daughter from future predators. Most importantly, she'd discovered that the Thompson family strength she'd always taken for granted was exactly what she needed to survive the worst crisis of her life. A year later, Rebecca's book, The Millionaire's Lies, a true story of marriage fraud and justice, became a bestseller. The Thompson Foundation for Financial Abuse Prevention helped over 300 women escape financially abusive relationships in its first year. And Emma Grace Thompson, Rebecca had legally changed both their names back, took her first steps in her grandmother's living room, surrounded by people who truly loved her. Jonathan Sterling became a footnote in their story, a cautionary tale about the consequences of believing you're above the law. But Rebecca Thompson became something much more important, proof that sometimes the victim becomes the victor. And justice, though delayed, eventually comes for those who deserve it. The millionaire thought he could buy his way out of consequences, but he never counted on the power of women who refuse to stay silent, families who fight for each other, and a justice system that occasionally works exactly as it should. In the end, money couldn't buy Jonathan Sterling the one thing he needed most: a way out of the truth. And the truth, as Rebecca learned, really can set you free.